I'm Anna Rummer. I'm the Associate Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs Operations. It's a pleasure to be here today. I'm filling in for Shasta today. She was not feeling her best. Definitely wanted to be here, and while this is a top priority, her wellness is even more so. I wanted to let you know, for those of you who are not joining us for the first time, that these table topics allow us the opportunity to get to know our colleagues and have a series of candid conversations that bring us closer, foster meaningful connections, and provide opportunities for learning and growth. We also have our landing page in case you've missed an episode and you want to see what our other student affairs champions are up to and what they've shared, or you can also nominate the next spotlight or department by visiting austincc.edu/table topics. We also have a LinkedIn page where you can follow all the exciting things that are happening within student affairs. So today, we are highlighting 3 very special guests to showcase the collaboration happening between ACC and Austin PBS. So to support these student parents, we have Dr. Benjamin Kramer, the Vice President of Education at Austin PBS. If you'd like to give him a round of applause, we are very thankful for this partnership. We also have Troy Jefferson, our Director of Student Life. Please welcome Troy. And last, and certainly not least, someone I was really excited to meet today, we have Kristan Hennessy, who is our Family U Student Fellow. So please give it up for Kristan. All right, I'm going to take one big deep breath. I don't know if y'all could use that breath too from this week, but I'm going to take that deep breath, and we're going to launch right in, Ben. So, Dr. Kramer, thank you for joining us today. Let's get started. And we've already welcomed you, so I'm now going to jump to the questions. All right. Can you start by telling us a little more about yourself? How did you get to Austin PBS? And why is this work important to you?
Sure. Welcome, everyone, and welcome to our gorgeous home, the Studio A of Austin PBS. And you should know that you are our landlords. This is part of ACC Highlands campus, and we thank you for being such generous hosts of Austin PBS. My start in education happened about 30 years ago. I have been many things in the education world. I've been a teacher, primarily bilingual in ESL. I've been a principal at elementary and high school levels. I've been a professor at UT Austin and at Texas State. And about 12 years ago, I was serving as a principal, and my wife was also a principal at the time, and we had young children, and that just seemed unworkable, that both of us would be so immersed in a school community of our own and then come home and be present for our kids. And so I got to, this opportunity came up to join Austin PBS, and I had grown up with PBS in rural upstate New York. It was one of the 4 channels that I had when I was growing up. You had to get the PBS channel by going on the roof and turning the antenna, but I did that so I could watch my British comedies and Sesame Street and The Muppet Show. When this opportunity came up, I saw immediately how much of an impact it had on my life and on my family's life. The anecdote that I like to share is I went from being the guy who would have to call people from my work and say, "Hello, this is Ben Kramer, nothing's wrong." Because when you get a call from your principal, you immediately think that's where this is heading. My new motto is, it doesn't work if it's not fun. If we, and in the world of PBS, can't carry our educational resources in a way that's fun and enriching and engaging with kids and families, then it just frankly doesn't work. There are too many other choices out there. So
as a fan of fun, I might start adopting that motto myself. It doesn't work unless it's fun. Mm-hmm. So thank you for sharing a little bit about your background. And it's easy to see outside of our building, obviously, that ACC and Austin PBS share a physical space. Mm-hmm. But I believe we also share a similar mission when it comes to student success. So can you talk to us about the work that happens at Austin PBS and how it enhances our student success? Maybe share a little bit about your partnership with Student Affairs Communications and how that's enhanced our student success as well.
Sure. So the mission of Austin PBS is to enrich lives or to improve lives and empower communities. And that extends from all ages all the way through adulthood and into senior citizen status. we in the educational services team have a more focused mission, which is to help children be ready for school at the point of entry into school and to help them remain on grade level throughout their schooling years, all the way through 12th grade. So where does that fit in? Where's the mix with ACC? Along the way, we have learned that an astounding number of ACC students are parents. And these parenting students are, given the demographics of ACC, are mainly parents of young children. And so we have this opportunity to reach out to them to say, wow, first of all, congratulations. You are students. You're looking to improve your lives. And chances are having children is one of the strongest motivators for you to do the work that you're now doing. At the same time, you're probably also working, and of course, you're parenting. So these folks are living very complicated lives, as all of you know. And we believe, with some evidence, that screens play an important role in those lives. That they use screens to keep kids safe and engaged while they take care of the business of living this rich, complex life. So that's where we want to come in. And we want to say to them, we get it, and we understand that you're using screens strategically. We would love to show you how to make sure that your kids are not only safe, but they're actually engaged in learning while using screens. And the other thing that we want to share with you is that there are times when all of us have had too much screen time in our lives. We feel it at work, but we also feel it at home. When we go home and reward ourselves with screen times, all of us have that sense that, okay, I've had enough, and then the challenge is, how do I get myself off? And so we want to share tips and tools that we have, how to notice this in others, especially in your children, but how to notice it in yourself as well. And what are the other activities you can do to move off of screens and into other kinds of learning or other kinds of engagement that are as productive, as fun, but then still that also offer parents a bit of a break.
I love that idea, and I'm going to go a little bit off script and ask a follow-up question because I'm just personally curious as a parent of kids who are on screens. Yeah. What are some of the tips, or is there a specific tip that has been well adopted by some of our student parents?
Yeah. So the main tip that we share is when you try to engage someone who's on a screen and they literally cannot turn their head to acknowledge that you're trying to talk to them. That is a moment that's probably a breaking point where you think they've had enough screens in their lives. And it happens to all of us. But here's where the science of screen time comes in. We know that it happens much quicker for children than it does for older humans. They are much more likely to get sucked into what we call a zoned out mode. And it actually is a physical state where they're partly awake and partly on the road to falling asleep. And that is unproductive time. We like to say to parents, you want your children to be awake or you want your children to be asleep. You do not want them to be in that middle zone. And so parents can learn how to recognize that in their kids and make sure the screens are shut off. But they also have to know what to send kids on to do next. And typically, that's one of two things. It's either to do something that's physically active, or given the tendency of us to get more tired as the evening wears on, if it is evening time, it's probably time to switch to some bedtime preparatory routines.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Mm-hmm. So back on script, how did this shared space and mission lead you to a partnership with ACC?
So as we were designing this place, it was during the pandemic, and an opportunity came up for us to apply for a U.S. Department of Education grant through ACC and with the sponsorship of U.S. Representative Lloyd Doggett. And so we had a quick round of what we called speed dating with various shops in ACC to try to find out, well, where's our landing place? Where can we best work together? And we landed on two strategies. The first strategy is with the College of Education, or with the School of Education, and it's to help redesign the Child Development Associate program, to bring that program into an online curriculum, to extend the reach to more folks, because we know childcare is a critical need in our area with a huge shortage of childcare providers. And we wanted to, by bringing it online, wanted to make sure that it included elements of digital literacy, the kinds of things that Austin PBS can offer, so that the students are learning not just in effective ways on screen, but they're also learning how to use screens effectively with children, right? So that's phase one, and we're right now in the pilot cohort of that group. So we have 7 students from the YMCA, childcare centers who are going through that initial step, that inaugural program, and that we hope that will live for many, many years to come. The second phase was to say, okay, how do we reach this large body of parenting students? And for that, we turned first to student life, and we designed a presentation that talked about many of the things that I just mentioned to you, but in a much more interactive and engaging way. I hope I was mildly engaging just now, but this is much better. Much better, I promise you. And so Troy is one of our stars of that show. Some other things that we've done, we're now talking about designing care packages for ACC's parenting students to kind of bring them in, to say, come on in and meet Austin PBS and meet ACC at the same time. Can we work together? And then the third thing that we're doing are a series of workshops called Ready to Learn and Play to Learn for parents and kids of differing ages. We're right now recruiting for those workshops. These are free workshops, not just for ACC students, but also for staff as well. Recruiting is going on to operate during the winter break. We'll have one of each of those workshop sessions, depending upon the ages of the kids during winter break. So those are the different ways that we're using these grant funds to build this relationship together.
I love that. Let's see here. So we've talked about all the good stuff. Mm-hmm. What are some of the challenges whenever it comes to supporting student success? And how can ACC continue to partner with Austin PBS to best support our students and their children?
I think this audience knows better than I, much better than I, that the challenge is just how incredibly complex people's lives are. Mm-hmm. And how hard it is to reach them and to try to convene them when they have so much else going on. So that's caused us to think about virtual opportunities. That's caused us to think about how do we really make it worth your while to, pack up the kids and show up to one of your campuses and do something together with us. Mm-hmm. I think that's probably, again, I see heads nodding. I think that's probably the biggest obstacle we have is just how extraordinarily complex people's lives are as they seek these multiple roles of parenting, working, and improving their lives through education.
I mean, it's a very intentional choice, right? Doing the best that you can as a student, the best as you can as an employee, the best as you can as a parent. And it's a constant struggle with making those types of decisions. So can you share a little bit about some of the exciting upcoming projects or initiatives that we can look forward to from ACC's partnership with PBS?
Absolutely. December 1st, we are participating with ACC on the Riverside campus in their holiday movie night. So we will be screening PBS holiday specials with kids and families. We will be bringing out Clifford the Big Red Dog to help entertain the children between the specials. And we're just going to be having a good time there. And then the second event that we have in December, on December 12th and 13th, we'll be participating with ACC in their Giving Tree events at the South Austin campus and in the Round Rock campus, where we ourselves are piloting this idea of a care package for families, something that will give them a little holiday boost, something that will help them out, and something that will give them fun activities to do over the winter break.
I love that. That is really exciting. I can't wait to see how that goes, how well it's received. And I appreciate that y'all have this commitment to continuously learning, understanding. And it's not working unless it's fun. So that was a big takeaway, but also what makes it worth their while to show up and engage. So thank you for that. Lastly, before we move on, is there anyone that you would like to shout out before we go to the next segment?
Sure. Well, I love my friends here in Student Life, so they, of course, get all my love. But there are folks not here today that have done just an incredible job of completely flipping around in an instructional program, and that's the team that I've worked with in the CDA redesign. So Professors Jeannie Migaud and Rania Salman have been involved, and Dean Yao Fan. All three of them have just been phenomenal partners in thinking through how do we make the CDA program work for everybody in the ACC viewing area.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Kramer. It has been a pleasure getting to learn more about this partnership. Can y'all believe all this amazing work that is already happening for our community? As Dr. Kramer mentioned, one of the first partnerships established with our student engagement and academic success leaders. It's one that many of you know already. So join me in welcoming Troy Jefferson, our Director of Student Life, and an amazing partner with Ready, Set, Learn. So welcome, Troy, please. All right, Troy, I promise to be friendly and positive. All right, so Student Life is the heart of our campus communities, providing a warm and welcoming environment that ensures all students feel included in their college experience. Troy, could you give us a quick overview of Ready, Set, Learn and how your office was brought into this partnership with Austin PBS and how y'all have been bringing it to life?
Well, thank you for having me here today. We were first made aware of the program through my Associate Vice Chancellor, Dr. Willie Martinez, who's here with us. He sent me an email asking that I think there was a connection between Student Life and Ready, Set, Learn, and I said, I think there is. And it also just triggered in me a past life experience when I was involved as a child care coordinator at one of my previous institutions. And, you know, even though you think on the surface you know what child care issues are, until you're actually dealing with them and dealing with the students who are actually going through the process, you really don't have a good understanding of what it is. And so that's always been an issue that's been near and dear to me. It's always mattered quite a bit because it also deals with access. You know, we have higher education here, but if you can't access it, what good is it to you? And one of the barriers to access has been childcare needs. And so when I got the opportunity to be a part of this, I just jumped at it. It was a no-brainer for me. I was going to do it. And it's been really, really fruitful for both Student Life and hopefully for PBS as well, and most importantly, hopefully for the students.
So when you worked in childcare, what were some of the things that your students were telling you that they needed that extra support with?
There were as many issues as there were students coming before me, but all those issues really revolved around the same four topics. It was money, time, family support, and access to resources. Every issue had something to do with that. And as you're hearing the stories, you just realize that this is a real need. This is a need that needs to be met if we're going to get where we want to get as an institution, not just this institution, but all institutions. We can't leave parents who are having difficulty with childcare out there in the wilderness. We got to find a way to bring them in. Because one thing, it just eliminates, if there's something like a circle of poverty that's going on, education can help alleviate that. It's also going to make for better outcomes for that child down the road. So it really is incumbent upon us to find ways to bring parents into the fold, and once they're into the fold, keep them there. And the Ready, Set, Learn program was a way of doing that.
I love that, and I definitely hear hints of what you're talking about, that multiple generation approach to education, right? Bringing our baby bats into the fold and engaging them in that way. So I guess, what kind of impact has Ready, Set, Learn had on our students? What are some of the memorable moments that you can recall where you've had that chance to experience these opportunities providing that sense of belonging for our students and their kiddos?
Sometimes for me, doing the program and being up on the stage while it's going on, it's hard to necessarily measure what the gauge of it is, because actually on stage you don't actually see anything out here. So I can actually see y'all here because you're right in front of me. But there have been a couple of times where I've been out in the community at a grocery store or something, and someone's recognized me from the program. There's been a couple of times when I've been on campus where someone has recognized me from the program. And so that lets you know that it's getting through. People are watching it. People are seeing it. But probably the best moment I've had with it is where you're sitting right now at one of the prior programs. We just laid out some butcher paper on the floor, and students just automatically came to that butcher paper and started drawing. We had markers, we had crayons, and they just automatically started drawing. They didn't have to be led to it, they didn't have to be guided, they automatically did. So that just told me something about how pedagogy, how the mind works in the child. And so it's like, if we can just avoid messing them up, and if we can just let them be who they are, it's probably going to be all right. And one of the ways we can make sure that we don't mess up and let them be who they are is make sure that their parents have ways to take care of them while they're in school.
No, I think that's excellent. It's keeping it fun, keeping it simple, and keeping it engaging and worthwhile for those students. So I guess my question is, how do you see student life and student affairs as a whole continue to be part of the partnership with Austin PBS. So we heard a little bit from Dr. Kramer what those opportunities are, but what do you see, Troy?
In student life especially, we have a window to the students themselves. And so our partnership, I think, is one of, once again, getting access, making sure that students know what their resources are and where they can go to get them. As an employee, I'm not even aware of all the resources that are available for students. So if you have a student who's coming in who's also taking care of children, how are they going to necessarily be aware when they walk in the door what's there for them? So programs like Ready, Set, Learn help that process. It keeps students in the know so they know where to go to get the things that they need in order to be successful in school. So that's where I see the partnership itself. As far as, I think one of the interesting effects of it has been for me, how long ago was this? I'm aging myself with this comment that I'm about to make. But the first ever episode, network episode of The Simpsons, I think that's over 30 years or so ago or something like that. I'm watching the first ever episode, and I always think of
Not on PBS.
I always think of this when I remember that episode. I always think of Ready, Set, Learn because there's a scene where Marge is holding Maggie, and she's talking about care for babies, what is proper adult supervision. And she sits down Maggie, and she turns on the TV in front of her. And now that was a satirical joke back in 1989, 1990, whenever that was. But Mr. Kramer and Ready, Set, Learn has actually turned that into a learning experience. He's turned that TV screen that was once used as satire as an educational tool. He's turned computer screens into an educational tool. He's turned your smartphone screens into an educational tool. So now we've gone a complete circle from where we started as satire and a joke, and now something that is seriously used for education.
Thank you so much for all that you're doing and all that Student Life is doing to support our parents or our students who are parents. Before we move on, is there anyone that you would like to shout out before we go to the next segment?
Yes, there are 3 people I would like to shout out. One is Dr. Martinez, because without him, I would not have known about the opportunity. Now, I don't know if you remember the conversations that we had back when I was onboarding about how into childcare I was, so I don't know if he remembered that, but I'm going to assume that he did, and that's why that email came to me. So without him, it wouldn't have started. One of our student life coordinators, April Seaborn, was also hugely impactful when we first started Ready, Set, Learn, especially when it was a Zoom meeting the first time around. Without her, we would not have had the success that we did. And lastly, the man to my left, Dr. Kramer. What I can say for him is the biggest compliment I can give. He reminds me of a student life employee. And that at the end of our events, so something like a Riverbat Bash, it's like our folks are tearing that program down like it's the worst thing that ever happened, when in fact it's one of the best things that ever happened. But the reason why we tear it down is because we want to make it better. And that's exactly what Dr. Kramer does. Willie and I are in constant communication about how can we make Ready, Set, Learn even better than it already is. And that kind of drive for service and making the world a better place is why I'm a big fan of his.
Yes, for most people who don't know, Ready, Set, Learn started during peak COVID times. It was a lot of Zoom meetings and a lot of question marks, and it's been amazing to see how it's continued to innovate and change and engage our students and their kiddos. So thank you all for your work. All righty. So now for the grand finale, please join me in welcoming Family Youth Student Fellow Kristan Hennessy. Kristan was one of only 7 students selected to serve as a Student Parent Fellow as a part of the Family U cohort. Kristan is a parent herself and is currently studying nursing here at Austin Community College. So please join me in welcoming Kristan.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. So as she mentioned, I am a level 2 nursing student here at ACC. I'm also a working mom of 2, and I'm a first-generation college student, which I'm very proud of. I started at ACC during the lockdown, and so far it has been a wonderful experience. Switching over to what Family U does, Family U is a 2-year program that works with institutions to better support their student parents. And they operate under a nonprofit organization called Generation Hope. So what we do is we work to identify gaps in resources, update facilities to be more family-friendly, and remove policies that create unnecessary barriers for our student parents.
Excellent, Kristan. Thank you so much. Can you share us a little bit about who you are? What makes you amazing? Why did you choose ACC?
I really liked that ACC worked hard to be affordable to parents. They hadn't raised their tuition since the 90s. And then when they so quickly moved everything virtually, that was really a key for me. A lot of schools were not quite keeping up with that. So when they did it so quickly, I was able to enroll, and I managed to knock out all of my prerequisites and get accepted into the nursing program while most of the world was still locked down. So I thank ACC for making that a possibility even.
That's awesome. Can you share a little bit about what made you interested in becoming a Family U Fellow? Has this added value to your experience being a Riverbat?
Yes, so I found out through ACC, actually through our nursing instructors. They sent out an email, I think, knowing that so many of us were student parents. And when I looked at Family U, I was just really impressed at all the work that they did for families, their commitment to anti-racism, and just ending that cycle of poverty. So I knew that that really closely aligned with my values, and I thought we would make a great team. So I applied, and then here I am today.
Wow. That's awesome. Okay. So you've shared a little bit about your journey in becoming a Family U Fellow, but can you share a little bit some of the key challenges that you've encountered? Would you mind sharing some of those challenges that you're hearing from our other students here? How are our students overcoming them, or is it still a struggle? Are they not able to succeed because of those struggles?
Sure. So like I said, COVID was kind of the key that allowed me to get into college, and I know that that's the same for a lot of our other student parents. Before the lockdown, there just wasn't enough time to get all this stuff done while still juggling your parenting responsibilities. And I don't think that those struggles have disappeared since COVID has gone away. As Troy was mentioning, I think childcare, time constraints, and finances, those are the top three things that we've heard from our student parent survey. 88% of students' parents are living with financial stress. And then 86% of them have had trouble meeting deadlines or attending classes due to their parenting responsibilities, which is a huge number.
I'm going to go off script just a little bit, Kristan.
Sure.
I'm just curious. You have a room full of amazing ACC leaders and employees. We have folks that are joining us from online. Is there any advice, requests, guidance that you would give to those who are listening in? How can we be better supporting our students who are parents? Any changes that you wish that we'd make? Anything that we can improve on? What advice or guidance would you give us?
I think one thing to remember, especially at ACC, is our student parent population is a fairly large one. I think to say that 28% of our population being student parents, I think that's fairly conservative. I think there's probably a lot more than that. And to just remember that not all student parents look the same. There's definitely a stigma around being a parent in college, that maybe you don't have a lot of money, that you might be single, and just kind of do away with all of those preconceived notions of what being a student parent is, and just support these students to graduation, because it means so much. Like Troy was saying, this is breaking the poverty, or the cycle of poverty. By supporting these students to graduation, we're ensuring that they're probably going to earn higher salaries, and that their children are more likely to attend college in the future, which means they will earn higher salaries. So this is just an opportunity to conquer, a lot of different cycles through a multi-generational approach.
Excellent. So on top of being a part of our nursing program, which is robust, requires a lot of study time, you've also signed up to be a part of this fellowship. So when it comes to an end in 1 year's time, what do you want to look back and see that you've accomplished?
I think that data collection would be my number one goal. I think that that is probably the first step. We cannot help a population if we don't know who that population is and what they need. Plus, data collection is also really important to our leadership and to stakeholders. So we're working on that in a few different ways to increase the data that we're collecting on student parents. Second, I would love to see staff and faculty participation in our upcoming professional development module. We'll be going over who student parents are, what their barriers are, and strategies and resources that we can use to support them to graduation. And then I think lastly, I'd like to raise awareness about student parents on campus, because I know that they do feel invisible. And I want them to know that we see you and we're on your side. We're on your team, and we want you to succeed.
Thank you, Kristan, so much. This is the last question. Is there anyone that you would like to shout out before we close this particular episode?
Oh gosh, there's so many people that deserve elevation and my gratitude. Just to name a few, Angelica, she's my coach here at ACC. Jess, who is my coach at Family U. Professor Mary Cox, who was the professor who ensured I could attend all of my Family U interviews and who I would not be here today without. And then lastly, my husband, John, who just tirelessly and endlessly supports and believes in me.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. So I believe that we do have some time for questions from the audience. We have some great folks here on stage. So I'm going to allow some time for Q&A, whether here in person or if somebody is watching online. What questions do you have for our esteemed panel? I've heard that often you have to give 8 seconds of silence, which always feels uncomfortable for somebody to conjure up a question. Angelica, thank you so much. All right, so I'm going to share my microphone with you, Angelica.
Hi, this question is for Kristan. Kristan, can you tell us a little bit more about how the workshop is being developed and some insight into some things that you've done for the workshop?
Sure. So one of the first things that I did to start creating this workshop was design a ACC exclusive student parent survey, which I've worked really closely with the Adult Career Scholars, United Way, Advocacy Center, Student Affairs, and so many other people to get this survey widely distributed so that we can get ACC specific feedback and include that in our training module. Other than that, it is going to be an in-person presentation that you're welcome to attend in January. And like I said, we'll just be going over some basic demographics of who these students are, the biggest challenges that they face, and then the specific ways that faculty and staff can support them to graduation.
Got a question for Ben. Ben, what's a pie-in-the-sky activity that you could see us partnering with?
Ooh, that's a great question. What we're still working on, and I don't think we've quite unlocked it yet, we had this room filled for our grand opening for our Ready, Set, Learn presentation. And I think we still have this desire to find an ACC event where we know there's going to be great turnout of kids and families together. And whether we can tag on to that event and have it be not only part of the event, but one of the draws to the event. So that we get a full house, so Troy gets to operate again in front of a full audience. And we get a chance to really bring to full life this idea of this collaboration in a real and visceral sense in front of a full crowd of kids and families. That in a show, right? I think RB is show worthy, don't you think? Yes, I know there have been some pilots in the past, but yeah, that's truly pie in the sky. Yes.
Hi. Quick question. Just based on your experience thus far with the partnership with ACC, do you have any guidance on how we can make AC more family friendly when it comes to doing those events?
I think in talking to Student Life and Student Affairs, I think you're all asking the right questions. And from what Kristan's saying today, I think you're getting the right information. It's how to put that information into practice in a complex world. We live in this remarkably growing metropolis now, where getting places is hard, especially when you need to pack up and get kids in with you, and especially if you don't have transportation of your own. So I think this need to think through carefully when we engage families, what are the formats in which we engage them, and then how do we make it worth our while for them to turn out? I think those are the building blocks for really successful, meaningful engagements with families. It's almost as if you leave one of those pieces out, you're going to miss a certain segment of your populace. And so really thinking carefully through those. And again, all signs that I have are that student affairs and student life are thinking those, are asking themselves those questions. And I've learned a lot about how to communicate with the ACC population as a result of working with them.
Thank you so much, Tamara, and thank you all for those were really thoughtful questions. Distinguished guests, thank you for being here. It was a joy getting to learn more about our partnerships, our leaders, and our students who are caring for one another. I did want to do a special shout out on behalf of Dr. Buchanan for Flora. So if y'all enjoyed the food and how you were taken care of at this particular shout outs and every shout outs, Flora is the one who makes that happen. Today is her last day at ACC. So I want to say thank you for her service. Thank you for taking care of us. Thank you for consistently smiling, making it an amazing event. So if y'all get the opportunity, please wish her well, but I wanted that opportunity to shout her out. If y'all can, please help me in thanking our guests for being here today. So give them a warm round of applause. We welcome you to stay for a tour of the studio. Save the date. Our next table topics will be in February. Please RSVP, nominate your colleagues or team at austincc.edu/table topics. And thank you so much for your time today. Cue that music.